Meeting started. We need to remember Tony in prayer. He's not feeling well tonight either, so he won't be here. And I reckon Donna Goodman is not. Oh, she got pink eye? Yeah. Okay, Ms. Tony, you want to go first?
Sure. I don't have anything for the agenda. I hope everybody had a great Christmas break. I know there's been a lot of sickness, a lot of losses, as Mr. John just said in our prayer. Just remember the Birchfield family and Nurse Kathy, and just found out one of my other teachers, her grandmother passed away this morning. So just remember that entire staff, and tomorrow we'll start with some PD training at the high school, then and go back to Birchfield and start looking at things and getting our scope and sequence ready. There's a little over 60 days until the middle school starts testing, elementary school start testing, so it's going to go by really quickly. The janitors are at school disinfecting everything, making sure water fountains and doorknobs, all that stuff is done, so hopefully we'll fight some of this sickness, maybe some of this cold weather will knock that out. But unless y'all have any questions about what you think.
Thank you. Ms. Lisa.
Happy New Year. We're hoping to get off to a good start tomorrow also with our PD and back to our schools for what we're working on. We have some good announcements. We have some people that have won some grants. The back to school grant we had received for Kelly Miller. Someone had given her a fish tank. A parent had donated that, and she got a grant to do an ecosystem in that with some fish. So Andrea Kress also received the teacher survey from SCORE. She got $300 for a classroom grant, and she's getting to spend that on her classroom. So she was tickled to get that from the State Department. And we also received, and I'm sure others have too, the Read to Be Ready grant again this year for the summer. And we got to add 2 more teachers and 10 more students, so we'll be serving 30 students this summer. So we were tickled to get that grant again. And we also will be going over more data and looking forward to seeing what we have gained and looking to see what we need to work on to be able to prepare for the next testing we'll be going through. That's all I have unless you have anything for me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Stanley.
I don't have anything for the agenda either. I would like to mention that the county middle school basketball tournament will start next week. I was just talking with Mr. Hall before the meeting started. The first night is scheduled for Monday night, and that is January the 8th. And the games were originally scheduled at 5, 6:30, and 8. I'm going to try to get with some of the coaches tomorrow. I'm not sure how many of y'all have been watching football yesterday on TV, but some of us were glued to it. I am a huge football fan, and most of you, I'm sure, know that Georgia and Bama will face off Monday night at 8 o'clock, and I'm really interested in that game. So I'm going to see if any of the other coaches are as well, and Mr. Hall and I have talked about, we have several options there. We can go ahead and most everybody can record those games. We can watch them later. We can also do 1 or 2 games Monday night, carry one over to Tuesday night if we need to do that. It doesn't matter. I am going to see what the majority of the coaches and principals want to do. And whatever everybody decides, that's what we'll do about the first night. Then the next night will be Thursday night, and those will also be at 5, 6:30, and 8. The consolation games and the finals will be on Saturday, and that will start at 1:30 and continue on through the boys' finals that night. Also, just an update, I talked with Mr. Keaton at Plateau Electric, and I believe he also has talked with Mr. Hall about lighting at the football field, and I think they're going to get together, and Mr. Keaton was extremely nice, said that Plateau Electric could certainly install the poles for that, and he said that Plateau Electric would do anything they could to help us with that. And I think the idea there was pretty much to kind of follow the same setup that was done with Robbins when the lights were installed there. So the cost should be comparable, I think, to what it was when those lights also were installed. So that's kind of just where we are on the lights. We also, Winfield School was also approved for the Summer Ready to Be Ready program, and we have Brandy Harris and Michelle Norris and Stacy Botts. Those 3 teachers will be working this summer with students to try to catch some of them up, and that grant was for $18,000. So we were really pleased to get that money. And that's all I have, unless you have questions.
Thank you. Ms. Robin?
Well, we're getting prepared to head back to school on Thursday, and as Miss Tanya said, we're trying to get everything disinfected and ready to go for the kids. I do want to remind parents, just to remind students, wash your hands, use the hand sanitizer, cover your mouth when you cough, just to kind of help us and to prevent the spread of those cold germs. I will get you a January, February calendar next week. We've got a few tweaks to add to that. I do not have anything for the agenda for this month. However, I do want to mention to you, and I have already mentioned to Mr. Hall, we have put in a request for the Morgan County Correctional Facility to actually build our bleachers. And we're told that that would not be a problem. However, it has been a problem. We heard from the warden, I was trying to think, right before Christmas break, and they are no longer building bleachers. Of all the things that we could have put in a request for, they're building everything else, but they are no longer building bleachers. So I will be coming to you next month during the work session, and I'm going to get with Mr. Hall because there's a few things I want to check on, and possibly asking for us to bid for those bleachers. Now, we do have a fund that's set aside for those, that we do have some money put aside for the bleachers, and we're very willing to use that, but that kind of disrupted our plans, I guess you could say, a little bit. So I do want to just make you aware of that. And I also just want to remind our parents with coming back to school in the cold weather, please do not drop your kids off before 7:25. They're left out in the cold, they're unsupervised. That's very, very dangerous. And with these cold temperatures the next few days, also very dangerous for wind chills. So please be mindful of that. But that's all I have, unless you have something for me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Miss Esther, could I add something to what Miss Robbins just said? She mentioned about dropping the kids off, and that also applies really to parents who bring students that catch the bus for Scott High. Some of those parents have a tendency to drop those Scott High students off at our places very early and just go off and leave them. And so those kids are outside, they're there before the doors open, and as she said, particularly now when it's really cold, we don't have supervision there yet. We come in and there those students are. So if parents will, they really need to make sure that they're looking at the handbook for when to drop students off.
Okay. Mr. Cash?
I don't have anything for the agenda. Like Ms. Tanya said, we have our in-service tomorrow, everybody at Sky High in the morning. Tomorrow afternoon, the majority of our teachers will be with Miss Maria Bruce. She's doing a presentation for us tomorrow afternoon. And our preschool and kindergarten teachers will be meeting separately, and they'll be scoring their portfolios. We'll do that tomorrow afternoon. Students come back Thursday, I'm looking forward to getting back in the routine. I don't know about everybody else, but I am. We have a away basketball game Thursday at Winfield, and Friday we have a home basketball game against Robbins, and then tournament time starts. That's my favorite time of the year. I like when tournament time happens. So that's all I have, unless you guys have anything for me.
Thank you. Ms. Rector?
Thank you. I don't have anything for the agenda, just a couple of things to update you on. As I told you before we left for Christmas break, we did complete all of our EOC testing. Now we are just awaiting, and we did finish that finalization process after you finish the test, the teachers have to go in and do a finalization process, and sometimes that proves to be a little bit tedious, dealing with the state and some of those things. But we did get that finished on the very last day, and they are giving us the projected release date for quick scores for this Friday. So we'll all cross our fingers. We won't hold our breath, but we'll cross our fingers and see if that actually plays out and we get those scores. But we are expecting those to be on Friday. When that happens, we will give teachers the weekend and Monday morning to go ahead and get those test scores in the grading system. We do kind of have a method for that, but it really is a quick and pretty painless process for them to go in and put those scores in. So we are hoping that by next Monday, all of those grades from the EOC courses from the fall semester will be finalized, but it will take us just an extra couple of days in order to do that. Once we get those quick scores back, there is some information that we can pull from that as far as adjustment for instruction. Some real basic information that we can pull for that, pull from those, but not a lot of information from those quick scores. But once we get those, we will sit down and break down what data we can make some adjustments and we'll move forward from there and get ready to start it all again right after spring break. But that's where we stand as far as testing goes. We do have a home basketball game on Friday night. I'm kind of like Coach Cash, as much as I enjoy my breaks, and I really do, sometimes I am anxious to get back in that routine. I kept thinking today, what day is today? Is it Tuesday? Is it Wednesday? I wasn't sure what day it was, so I am kind of anxious to get back into that routine as well. Tomorrow, Scott High teachers will be joining everyone in the morning for the iGuardian presentation, which everyone is really looking forward to that. I'm glad we were able to have this gentleman come to us. I know it was one of the anticipated ones this summer, and he wasn't able to be with us, but this is something that really applies more and more so, it seems like, to the school settings. So we're really excited to have him tomorrow morning. And then Scott High teachers will be together in the afternoon, and we will be doing some ACT activities. That's been our focus this year, and we're really hoping our juniors will test in the spring, in late March, and we're really hoping to see some additional improvements there. We saw some good improvements with our senior retakes this fall, so we're really hoping to see some additional improvements with juniors. And we know that sometimes that can be a slow process, but every little bit of improvement counts. The one other thing that I do want to update the board on is our senior trip. We did get the bid process started on that. We have gotten students together. I believe we've only had one company that's bid on it the last couple of years. They did reach out to me separately to let me know that they were going to bid on it again, and kind of give me a ballpark price range of where they were going to be so we could go ahead and start things with students. Unfortunately, again, this year it looks like we're going to be right under the threshold for those students to take that trip again. We really need 30 students in order to make it even reasonably affordable. And by that, it's still very expensive, but to make it reasonably affordable. Under $1,000, okay? So we're talking about a lot of money. We are setting right at that 27, 28 number. We are going to go ahead and go through that process and give them the opportunity to turn in those payments in January to see if maybe we'll get a couple of more students who will come through with that. But we do try to be conscientious of that and make sure that we do have that definite number of 30, because once we pay that money to the tour company, it is non-refundable. So we want to be very careful and make sure that if we don't have the number of students to go, that we don't take their money. So it looks like we're going to be right under the threshold for that again, but again, we'll continue to push through with that and try. But this may be kind of those last wings and wins of senior trips through a school process. We just not meeting that number. But again, we'll continue to look at that each year and decide from there. But that's all that I have, unless you all have questions for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Miss Linda.
Okay, I did place up there on your desk just a copy of the agenda for in the mornings in service. It is the half a day, and this is, Ted Francisco is a speaker that so many teachers signed up for this summer, and then he had to cancel one time, and then the next time, which were not as many, then he was sick and he couldn't come, so we were able to bring him back. So we feel like it's gonna be a really good training, and certainly you all could attend if you would like to. He's very qualified if you look at, his qualifications here. So, I did send an email out before, we were out for Christmas to everybody, registration and light refreshments are from 8 to 8:30. And that first day back in the summer, we usually try to really do up a good breakfast. This is not gonna be that, so it's just gonna be light refreshments, and then actually we will start at 8:30. And go from 8:30 to 11:30, and then in the afternoon, the principals will have their teachers in their schools. So, that will be in the morning, and then just a couple of other announcements to make. I don't really have anything for the agenda, but we are again participating in the Teacher of the Year. And the schools will have their representative, their school-wide representative by this Friday, January 5th. And then we'll have the district level judging on the 18th. And then those teachers that are selected will have until February 1st to complete those applications to go to the core office. So at our school board meeting next week, we should have these school-wide that are selected from their schools. So that will be coming up, and I know we've been doing that for a while, so you are familiar with that process. Also, in thinking about test scores and thinking about how we want to improve the performance part, the achievement part, the East Core office is offering a training, ELA and math module training for the leaders in our system, like principals and coaches, consulting teachers, to go and get new information on ELA and math. So that's going to be a good opportunity for them to get new information to bring back to teachers. Several of them have said they would like to attend. Also, pre-K grant. Instead of being due this spring, it will go out tomorrow to us, and it's due February 14th. So that was a little bit of a shock. Because I just feel like we just got through that process and got things straightened out, and here it is due again, and I'm a little bit concerned because they were not real happy the fact that we had a 3-year-old class. So it scares me a little bit about whether or not we're going to be able to keep that. But we'll certainly do the best that we can to do a good job in this grant and try to maintain status quo on what we've got. But that is coming up soon, and that's quite honestly one of my worst nightmares, is that grant. It's bad. Also, we have received our award banners, and Mr. Hall may have been going to mention this to you. We did receive the banners for our exemplary award for the district and for Robbins Reward School. And keep in mind that we did receive that reward, and that was on growth, on progress, based on, I guess, the progress that we made over the last couple of years. And to me, TVOS and progress is so important, because it doesn't matter where a student begins. You want them to learn. You want them to have a full year of learning. So I really think that's important, and we're really proud of that. And so we've not had time to really talk about the process of what we're going to do, but we will make sure to take care of that and put that out in the media and all that. Then I think that's pretty much everything that I was going to mention. I know that Mr. Hall and I have not had a chance to talk about with the principals our test scores from the discussion from our last work session with Christmas break and everything, but we are working on a plan to make sure that we show progress on achievement, which is performance. Not growth and not progress, but achievement, which is performance. That one testing day per subject. Mr. Hall, do you want to add anything to that?
No, keep you touch base. We good.
Okay, that's all.
Thank you. Miss Debbie?
I do have one item for the agenda. Several weeks ago, we were given a little bit of an allocation in our IDEA preschool portion of money. So we are going to take that small amount of money that the state did give us, and we'll add that back to other contracted services. So you've got a copy of the amendment up there, the IDEA preschool amendment. Just a couple things with special ed. We are finishing up our winter benchmark testing with our Ames Web program. So those teachers that missed some of those students that maybe were not there when we did that, we'll be finishing that up. Hopefully in January, the state has told us that we're going to get our results back from our file folder review monitoring and also for our federal desktop monitoring. So we're sort of looking forward to that. You know, if we have to make any corrections, we'll have to gather teachers up and do an in-service, but we're always hoping that we don't have any corrections. But the state tells us, you know, they have to find things wrong with our program, so we'll be optimistic about that. We'll just continue on when school starts up. We already have several IEP meetings scheduled for students that were tested back before Christmas, and we'll just keep on doing what we've been doing in special ed. That's all I have, unless you all have any questions.
Thank you. You have anything, Amanda?
Yes, I do. I have 2 items for the agenda. There's Amendment 3 to the federal budget, and I'm just moving the money from 195 to 198. You'll have a copy of that in front of you. And then for the general purpose budget, it's Amendment 4, and the state is requiring us to break down each line item by school. So we're just moving money around to show that, you know, Birchfield and all the different schools are allotted that money within that. So we're required to do that by the state, and that's what you'll see there in that.
There is no adding of money or either.
No adding or taking away, just moving it into the line items.
Thank you. Mr. Gregg, you have anything?
I do not. Just ready to get back at it.
And Mr. Blakely?
I've got one thing for the agenda. Excuse me. It's like Miss Debbie said, I got a little bit of money back on C.T. Perkins funds. It's reallocation of funds that were unspent evidently from last year. I gave you a copy of that, and I'd like to get that on the agenda to approve that. It was $2,614.39, and I've elected to put $1,000 of that in instructional supplies and materials, with the balance in equipment. So that's all I have for the agenda. Our bids on our floor care machine should be back on Monday the 8th. So I'm happy about that. I reached out to the dealership. Our trucks are scheduled to be built 1/8 of this year, so hopefully that will proceed at pace. And the only other thing that I have, Mr. Tribal, wanted me to bring this before you, is we've got a proposal that's dated 12/27. The header on the fax says 12/29, so I don't know which is right, but anyways, it's for the striping and sealing of the parking lot at Winfield School for $7,000, and seal and stripe Robbins School for $6,500. So we just kind of want to let you know that we'd like to do that. And don't think it really needs to be on the agenda, but just as an informational item.
Weather effect.
We will have to, you know, I have to depend on them for when they can do it, you know.
May let the weather break in the spring, so it's not.
They're saying you'll have to be off for a few days for that to happen.
Rush right now.
So they might do it on your spring break or
Spring break.
something like that.
But that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Howell?
Thank you. For an item for the agenda, I want to approve the second reading of the following board policy that's recommended by TSBA. The work-based learning program, policy number 4.211, and the graduation requirements, policy 4.605. That's all I have as far as any items for the agenda. I would like to announce that due to the cold weather that we are experiencing, especially on Thursday and Friday, that Scott County schools will be on a 2-hour delay on both days. Now we're looking at probably sub-zero temperatures possibly. So we'll be 2-hour delay Thursday and Friday. I do know that our neighboring county, Morgan County, I think they start tomorrow. He's gonna go 2-hour delay the rest of the week, and I think the Oneida system's probably on 2-hour delay. Talked to both directors today. So we will, like I said, on a 2-hour delay Thursday and Friday. In-service training tomorrow at Scott High School, Oh, Ms. Lynn, I'm glad you mentioned that. I will be presenting the banners tomorrow for Ms. Newman and her staff for that, and also for all the principals and everyone involved that for us being an exemplary district. So if anyone wants to come by, you're more than welcome. I'll be doing that around 8:30. It's a great honor for our system to have a reward school and to be named an exemplary district. So again, we'll be doing that tomorrow, the first thing of the in-service training. County basketball tournament, looking to start next week. And then the week after that, we are looking at the district tournament, which I believe this year is at Jellicoe High School for the single A, the double A. I'm not sure, no, last year we hosted, but I think this year is probably somewhere in the other, not for sure exactly where. I'll get Mr. Shoemaker, and get that information to you when I know where the Huntsville School, middle school will be playing. Personally, I would like to thank each and every one of you all for your prayers for my family throughout the holiday season. And also, we've had a lot, it seemed like the past week, we've had a lot of our faculty and staff here that have lost loved ones. And we personally lost a bus driver, Mr. Junior Terry, who's been with us 22 years. That I think is not just within us, but is dear throughout our community. His wife, Kathy, is one of our school nurses. So keep them in prayer. I think his tomorrow night at 4 to 8 at Bethlehem Baptist Church. And I think the graveside service at 1 o'clock. So anyway, that's all I have. Unless y'all have any questions for me. Oh, can I ask one thing? I know you read, and I sent you on an email about Mr. Shannon, who resigned as Scott High School as your head football coach. Mr. Shannon came to Ms. Rector and myself. If you know Mr. Shannon well, I think he worked himself to where he just needed a break. And that's Mr. Shannon. He works till he gets to that point. He needs a break. Mr. Shannon's been a tremendous asset to our school and our football program. We will begin our search starting tomorrow. We'll start at the advertisement of the position. We're not going to rush to get the right person in place. We'll go through the process and we'll make sure that number one, that we're going to look for a teacher first. As I told Mr. Shannon, and I tell everybody this, that as hard as Coach Shannon worked on the football field, that's the amount of effort or more he put into his classroom each and every day. Right. That's the type of person we're looking for who can take our young men and mold them to be good citizens, to be good fathers, to be good husbands. That's the type of coach we're looking for. That's wants to coach student athletes and the molding of young men. So we'll start that search, and as I said again, we're not going to rush because we want to make sure we get the right person in place for our school system. We'll look at what we have from teaching wise, what we can do, and what we can. Right now, there's not a teaching spot available. To bring someone on board, it'd have to be, moving someone next year and bring somebody in from our system, which, like I said, we're going to do what's best and what's right. So we'll do what we need to do for what we have. But that being said, I want to thank Coach Shannon for what he gave to our school, to our players, and the coaches that worked under him, and also to our community. That's all I have. That's y'all questions for me.
Thank you. Do you have anything, Diane?
Yeah, I have a question. I don't know if any of you all been by the Scott High when the parking lot is empty of cars, but it's after a rain. There's a lot of puddles on that parking lot that I wondered why that is. Are they gonna be fixed?
I know there's one in the back that's out there by there.
One low place in the back, and it's really from the sidewalk. Is really
yeah.
what it is from the, but are you in the front?
There's one that's down there like going toward the,
Cafeteria.
No, it's in the
I know the
Yeah,
one in the
the
back,
back,
and
yeah.
it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
But there's a low one down there at the lower right side.
Down on the, that's on the part that we still have to do the drainage ditch down by where the old real school building is.
So it's gonna get fixed?
Yes,
Yeah.
well, that's
Well, that
something we've
ditch, yeah.
talked about. We ran out of time this summer where the paving got delayed. And so what happened then, it dried up, it didn't rain. And so we really didn't know what the drainage was for a little while. So what we did was we focused on the one that was running, there by the concession stand. And we
Got
did
that
that
fixed.
part first, but we have another section over there on that far side by where the practice field is and that old real school building is, it does, it puddles right there. And we're gonna have to do some excavating right there in order, because of the way the land is there. We're gonna have to level some things off in order for it to drain. But I know exactly what you're talking
That's
about.
one going behind the field
It
house.
is,
going.
yeah,
Yeah,
mhm,
okay.
that one, yeah.
Yeah, that, we'll get there.
And we're gonna do it, the way we talked about doing it was kind of exactly the way we had done the other one, that ran down in front of the museum and dug that drainage ditch where it met up with the other one, and it works beautifully. So that's in the plans, we're just gonna have to get through some weather first.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
I had noticed it, and I
Yep.
kept meaning to run into you and ask you about it, but I could never remember it.
Yep,
And so I was
That's
telling Miss Sharp here, it looks bad after
when
it
it rains,
rains.
yeah, and it
It
will
really does.
drain off, it just takes some time, but if you get out there right after it rains, it just stays there, sure.
All right, that's all I have.
Everything good? Yeah. Everything, Joe? Kim?
I'm good.
Okay, I guess we can go home.